Good day, everybody. This is the Dream Media Workshop. I am your chief engineer, Jack Fennimore, and today I have the wonderful Dayton Hamann here with me.
Hello, Jack. Thanks for having me on the show. My name is Dayton Hamann. I really appreciate being on here. I'm really excited for what you're working on here. I am part of the Zima Podcasting Network as well. You might know me from Who You Got or A Journey Through the North Pole. But I understand we have some different stuff under the lens today.
Yes, it's very exciting. So, let me tell you about this podcast that I have here for you today. This podcast, it takes a piece of media that people really want to exist, but it doesn't exist. And we try to create kind of a design document or a proposal to bring that piece of dream media a little bit closer to reality. Mm-hmm. And today, the dream media that we're going to be dreaming up today is a sequel to Pokemon Snap.
I am totally excited for this. I've had Pokemon on the brain. I've been playing through Pokemon Shield in my case, and so I am definitely in the headspace to talk some great Pokemon games.
Oh yeah, same here. I've been on that Pokemon Sword.
Nice.
With my Sword Doggo and my climate change Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
It's a good time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't even need, to get kids concerned about global warming. We don't need logic or facts and figures. We just tell them you're killing Pokemon.
Yes, exactly.
But that's besides the point. I digress. So, today we are talking about a sequel to the beloved Pokemon Snap. It is a non-violent, on-rails, first-person shooter released for the Nintendo 64 March 1999 in Japan and June 1999 here in America. Mm-hmm. It was the first time us Americans saw Pokemon in 3D.
Yeah.
Ooh. And it was also released on the Virtual Console, on the Nintendo Wii in December 2007, and then on the Wii U Virtual Console in 2016.
Nice.
So let me tell you about a little bit of history of the game. So Dayton, did you know that this game not only didn't start out as a Pokemon photography game, it didn't even start out as a photography game, but it started out as a game based on the Jack and the Beanstalk folktale.
That I was not expecting you to go that way. So I knew that Pokemon wasn't originally a part of it, and that Pokemon was sort of brought in as a way to motivate the player. After it became a photography game, as I understand it, they liked that general idea, but then the developers were wondering, well, what compels them to take photographs? It's well, let's make it Pokemon and have this be the first 3D experience with Pokemon, at least to the West. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. So so the team behind this game was named Jack and Beans. You could see their logo in the intro of the game. And this was an interesting team. It was handpicked by Nintendo executives like Shigeru Miyamoto and Satoru Iwata. And it had a lot of people from outside of the game industry. The game's director, Yoichi Yamamoto, he was a construction designer originally.
Okay.
And so the game, then titled Jack and the Beanstalk, was announced in the spring of 1997, and it's speculated that the game would have taken advantage of the Nintendo 64 disk drive, which was a add-on for the Nintendo 64 exclusive to Japan that used magnetic discs instead of cartridges. And it's speculated that the game would have used the internal clock of the disk drive to have plant seeds grow in real time.
Whoa.
So, for whatever reason, they decided to pivot the project to a photography game to supposedly take advantage of the disk drive's 38 megabytes of writable memory, which would make it perfect for saving photos.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and as you said, they decided to have Pokemon because there wasn't really any sort of motivation behind the game.
Right.
Not everybody was on board with this. HAL Lab character supervisor Masanobu Yamamoto recalled reacting negatively to the decision because it would replace all the work that he had done.
I see.
But then he said that adding Pokemon to the game clarified the direction of the game, so he came to like it. In his words, it felt like it had saved us.
Okay. Wow, that's a bold statement
Yeah.
after sort of walking back that. That's interesting. Wow, amazing to think that it came from based on a fairy tale into something like this. And I still feel, I imagine you would agree, this is still a fairly unique spin-off as far as big franchises go. I mean, I don't think anybody would have expected necessarily a photography game out of even a franchise as big as Pokemon. It's still a little bit unintuitive. It's cool.
Yeah, like you wouldn't really think about like the whole thing. It's built this identity of like catching Pokemon and battling Pokemon. That's basically its core philosophy. And to have something, a non-violent on-rails shooter, it's quite out of the blue, like going from an RPG with very much about catching, raising, and battling these weird creatures to seeing these creatures into the wild. It's really interesting, but I think it just speaks to Nintendo's kind of philosophy and style as a company, that they can take these wacky ideas and make something fun and interesting out of them.
Absolutely, yeah. And it speaks to, I think, something that we're finally starting to recapture in some of the mainline Pokemon games again, and that's the sense that the Pokemon world as a whole, not just the creatures, not just the trainers, not just the battling, but the entirety of that universe is really fascinating. I think it's so cool to go through, like, for example, in this game, down a river and to see a creature stick their tail in the water and then suddenly it gets clamped, and that changes it. That, in this case, of course, I'm talking about a Slowpoke evolving into a Slowbro via the Shelter mechanic, and it's ridiculous to see like this kind of thing in action, and it's, well, as ridiculous as it is, it's compelling. So I'm glad we're starting to see that in the Pokemon Sword and Shield games, you know, talking more about the universe surrounding these creatures and the universe that they've created, and it's becoming more than that. And I think this is really setting the stage for a Pokemon Snap 2. So
yeah, for sure. And so so back in the day, like, think about like the Game Boy. It was basically just an NES the size of a brick, so you couldn't have like really detailed graphics. A lot of these creatures, at least in the games, were being presented to the player in these very abstract ways.
Yes.
Like, they didn't even appear in the overworld like they do now.
Right. Oh boy, think about some of those back sprites in the battle animation.
Oh yeah.
It's, yeah, I totally see what you're saying, and that's what makes Pokemon Snap all the more appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah,
Finally
like,
seeing these. Yeah.
At that point in history, it was really up to the anime and other promotional materials to kind of flesh out that world and see these creatures in action, see them have personalities and interact with each other, fight with each other in these really fun and bombastic ways. And but I think Pokemon Snap is unique in that way. Pokemon Snap is unique because it showed off the personalities of these creatures. It shows them interacting with them, but it also allows you to interact with them.
Yes.
Then that's something that you cannot do in a medium like film or anything else. It's something unique to games. Being able to not only imagine these creatures being in this world and interacting with each other, but thinking about these as like tangible creatures that you can reach out and pet and catch and take photos of, and interact with in these really fun ways.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something really special. So I played Pokemon Snap maybe a little bit late. I got a used copy from a friend maybe a year or two after its release. So I was playing in the early 2000s. This was, but Pokemania was still very much at its high. I had just played, Red, Silver, Ruby was about to come out. Ruby, and those were like the three games that were really near and dear to me and my brother. I played Pokemon Stadium with friends and neighbors, Pokemon Puzzle League with friends and neighbors, and this was about the time that their hype was sort of dying down, but I was still very much in it. And I remember picking up Pokemon Snap from this friend. I had played it with him before, but I was really ready to go in and just learn all the secrets. And I think it's so cool that a lot of this game and everything you discover is very much based on how you interact with the environment as it is defined by the Pokemon. So I think you really nailed it on the head by this feedback that you get from the creatures that you're taking photos of is so critical to the charm of this game. Like in the very first level, you're able to lure a Pikachu with little apples over to a surfboard, and then he's surfing. You know, surfing Pikachu is such an icon of Pokemon Yellow. So you're able to recreate that, and you see this Pikachu sort of go from, you know, nonchalantly going about its life to seeing the little apple you tossed its way, and it's like, oh, it gets excited. And then it moves over to the surfboard and has this entire other sense of excitement. Like that type of feedback was pretty unheard of, and I think for some people they might define certain Pokemon from those original 151 by their experiences with the Pokemon in Pokemon Snap. I think that's super cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And wouldn't it be awesome to bring that experience to the hundreds more Pokemon that we have and the hundreds more Pokemon fans that we have? So.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but before I do, I'll just go over my history with the game, too.
Please do.
So I got into the game, like, even later. Like, I probably played the game at, like, if you guys recall, back in the day, like, at hotels, you would find, like, an N64 with, like, a bunch of, like, demos of games, and that was super cool. And I think I must have played it, like, once or twice through those. And then finally when but I didn't really dive into it until it came out on the Wii in December 2007 on the Virtual Console. It's just a really just lovable game. Me and my sister just ate it up. And, so I also, I work at Urban Milwaukee, and I take photography of different events around the Milwaukee area, and I like to joke that I got all my photography experience from Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like I didn't have a lot of formal training before then. I took some workshops, and I had one section of my journalism class in university was devoted to that. But other than that, it's kind of true. I must have gotten a lot of my training from Pokemon Snap, and I mean it's not really a bad way to go learn how to photograph stuff. Like, I mean, some things don't really translate well. Like in Pokemon Snap, you have to take pictures of the Pokemon. Like you have to have them in the center of the photo, whereas in real life photography, you have to kind of have them a little off center. Like the rule of thirds. It makes for more interesting and more pleasant to look at photo.
Sure.
But like stuff like having the Pokemon really prominent in the image, like the size of the Pokemon in there, having multiple Pokemon is more interesting. Having them in a interesting pose, having a unique capturing a unique interaction that you don't see anywhere else, capturing emotion. Just the distance between the focal points and all that. I think that all translates really well to photojournalism.
Yeah, it's really cool. You get like very basic feedback from Professor Oak, who you're working with in this game and who's asking you to take the photos. But it is helpful because you can't really too often. There's sometimes, but you can't really get away with crappy, sort of half-done, half-baked photos. Like, if you take a picture and you only have the back half of a Lapras, Professor Oak's going to call you out on it. It's like, oh, you can't really see the Pokemon that well. He won't get specific to say, like, oh, you must get the head of the Lapras. But he says, oh, it would be nice to get the whole Pokemon in the frame. It'd be nice to get them more towards the center. And it's cool. It gives you a certain eye for what makes at least a good wildlife photo. It's cool. Yeah, so I totally agree. There's something to be learned here with what Pokemon Snap offers. It's funny. So.
For sure.
Yeah. it'll be interesting to see if a Pokemon Snap sequel does happen, how that will interact with the younger generation of photo takers, because I think we do get exposed to that a little bit more early these days in our lifetimes because of smartphones. Maybe they'll be better at Pokemon Snap right out the gate. Maybe that's another segment and another reason that this game should exist. But I suppose you have your reasons for pushing for this, right?
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah.
Now, players have been clamoring for a sequel like this. Like in a 2014 poll from Kotaku, they had 3,000 respondents and to talk about what game they would like made for the Wii U. And the second highest request after Metroid Prime 4 was a new Pokemon Snap.
Wow, however, the second highest, wow.
Yeah, but however, the Pokemon producer Junichi Masuda, he's expressed a lot of disinterest in the sequel over the years. He told Polygon a couple years back that photography, quote, photography wasn't as widely spread in those days, the days the game was released.
Right.
Now everyone has a camera and can take photos whenever they want. Releasing the game in that form wouldn't be as interesting these days, according to him.
That's interesting. So I would almost, I sort of hinted at it already. I've already shown my cards a little bit. I almost have the opposite reaction. I think people, because photography is so proliferated and because it is so grassroots, because it's so of the people now, because anybody can do it, I think that makes Pokemon Snap all the more interesting. And it's interesting because there's Pokemon Go as well, and I know people like sharing screenshots from Pokemon Go, and I know they have the buddy system in Pokemon Go now, which might make people more interested in just literally observing and interacting with Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, to me it feels like, not that people would be more disinterested now. I feel like the stage couldn't be more ready for a Pokemon Snap game. Would you agree?
Like, one of the best innovations in gaming from this last generation was the share button on the controller. There's a reason that was totally there, because video gaming and social media have gone hand to hand for years and for decades now. And so a game like Pokemon Snap, where you're creating your own artwork, essentially, your own photos, that is something that would be highly ripe for this day and age, when everybody is taking their art, their lives, and putting it out there as content for other people to enjoy.
Really well said. I didn't even think about the sharing aspect, but that's totally what it is. You know, I thought about, people take photos, people enjoy taking photos, people enjoy the aspects of Pokemon Go, but it's not an insular experience. It's not a single player experience. It's always multiplayer. So, man, that's the nail in the coffin for me why this game should exist.
Yeah, but even then, like, even as recent as I think this was like last year. So another reason Junichi Masuda isn't really interested is because he doesn't really know how to. He doesn't really want to do it again. Like, he wants to do something that would. He wants to create like a new twist for it to kind of make it fresh. And then even this year, like, Metro UK brought up, like, okay, you had the Wii U gamepad. Now you have Nintendo Labo VR with the camera peripheral. But so why hasn't a sequel come out yet? And he said that they can't just make the same thing again, and they would have to come up with some unique twist if they were to make a new one. Interesting.
Yeah. A part of me thinks, man, just because the Pokemon world has literally multiplied, like, just exponentially over the past, it's been 20 years now. Just because the Pokemon world has expanded that much, I almost think that literally just giving it a fresh coat of paint with new characters, new environments, essentially the same game mechanics, might still be okay. Yeah. I think that might be a controversial opinion for some, just because, Pokemon Snap doesn't play perfectly. It still feels like an old N64 game. But even to just simply, insofar as introducing just motion mechanics, just using the Switch Joy-Cons a little bit to navigate your camera a little bit and aim, that might even just be enough.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think people have kind of come to expect from Nintendo, like, yes, they release the same games over and over again. That's kind of their MO. They've kind of turned that into an art form.
Sure.
But they always find something unique to add to their games. Like, and in an era with Super Mario Odyssey and the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild taking quite radical departures from previous entries in the franchise that they've had, the gameplay they've had for years, to see them make those changes and receive critical acclaim and sales, economic growth and sales. It's surprising and a little disappointing that Pokemon as a series still hasn't really done all that much to...
Right.
They have made changes for the better, but it's still a lot of the same thing that we've played since the days of the Game Boys.
Yeah, let's put it this way. I mean, I enjoy the Pokemon games still. I really enjoyed Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's really reignited my interest in the franchise. I haven't been this into it since probably Black or White. And I've played every main series game since then. And it's just like they're moving in the right direction. But the Pokemon games don't feel as forward-thinking as Mario or Zelda.
Yeah.
Which is saying something, because those games, I mean, like you said, they've made some big leaps, but there's still a certain tried and true formula to them. And Pokemon still feels behind.
Yeah, I think even the character models and animations, they do the job to convey the personality of the Pokemon, but they all kind of have the same kind of bounce, the same kind of rhythm to them, the same kind of gear.
Yeah.
Thinking about a car, they're all at the same kind of gear. There isn't really a lot of variation in how these Pokemon move, and I think now more than especially with the controversy that I guess we could call it a controversy that's erupted prior to Sword and Shield's release about them reusing assets and them cutting back on features, cutting out all the Pokemon.
Sure.
I think something like Pokemon Snap, because I think Game Freak are really talented animators, especially their VFX animation is amazing. I think we need a Pokemon Snap now more than ever to show these, to really let these Pokemon's personalities come alive and to see them in their kind of natural habitat. Think about even the intro cutscene, one of the intro cutscenes for the game. You have Score Bunny running around with little trails of fire, and then you have Grookey. It knocks the berry out of the Sobble squirts Score Bunny, and it hops around and hits the tree. The berry falls down, and Sobble starts crying, and it's just so adorable. And even Venusaur in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, seeing it hop around like a toad when you run, that. I'm not the biggest Venusaur fan, but now I have a new appreciation for that Pokemon, and it's all thanks to these really subtle, really interesting animation changes. I think this series could use some more of that.
Yeah, and Pokemon Snap really, or at least that framework of that the game provides that sort of canvas for this. Because I'm so glad you brought up that intro scene in Pokemon Sword and Shield with the 3 starters, Score Bunny, Sobble, and Grookey, because that is easily one of the most quickly have been endeared to starter Pokemon. I was pretty set on Sobble when I started up the game, but man, Sobble's animation there just sold me, and it made me even more tempted by Score Bunny and Grookey. That is what this game needs in terms of developing its world. And I think what was critical about that scene is that it allowed them to act naturally outside the restrictions of, okay, we need to have them standing 20 feet apart. We need them to perform any number of hundreds of moves throughout the entire game, depending on what they learn and delete and that sort of thing. And we need them to interact with the opposing Pokemon and their moves in this way. I understand the problem that Game Freak faces and in the limitations of their animation because of the mechanics of the Pokemon game and the battle. Pokemon Snap gets rid of that. Pokemon Snap provides them the opportunity to literally just animate a scene.
Yeah.
And put, there's points where you could, there's like, the player might throw an apple here, might do this, might do that. But you could even just have it as like a short cutscene, and that's and there's tons of opportunities for that to happen in a given Pokemon Snap game as we've come to know it. So, great point. I think this could really provide a really suitable canvas for Game Freak to demonstrate their skills again and their love for this franchise. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, I think we're ready to dive right into get some dreaming going.
Yeah.
Get our T-squares and our rulers, get our tools together, and let's dream up some media.
Yes, absolutely. So, did you want to start, or should I sort of have a general idea of how I would want to personally approach a Pokemon Snap game, but I don't want to step on your toes if you have some ideas right off the bat.
Honestly, I think you've worked harder at this than I have, so you go right ahead, pal.
Okay, so I've always had this idea for kind of something that needs to be addressed within the Pokemon world, and I figured that Pokemon Snap 2 could be an opportunity to do it. So, my idea for a Pokemon Snap game is just called Pokemon Snap 2 World Tour. I know Mario Kart says Mario Kart World Tour, and I know this isn't a mobile game, but you'll see what I'm talking about. So, I really want a Pokemon Snap game that celebrates the entire Pokemon world as we've come to know it through the main generation games. The original Pokemon Snap was more or less just about showing Pokemon in 3D, carrying the same torch that Pokemon Stadium did later down the road. So this game needs to provide a bold and compelling world with not just charming Pokemon, but charming characters, including yourself, to interact with them. So I'm imagining the Pokemon Snap 2 World Tour begins with you, a simple news photographer, at a conference with all 8 Pokemon professors. So we have Professor Oak, Elm, Birch, Rowan, Juniper, Sycamore, Kukui, and Magnolia. And spoilers for Pokemon Sword and Shield, Sonia's also there because she's also a professor.
Yeah.
So you're simply taking pictures for a Pokemon news magazine, and at this point, the professors, they're just discussing all matters Pokemon, sort of like a sort of brain trust of the Pokemon world.
As you do.
Yeah, exactly. They are just sort of talking, and the topic of the Pokedex comes up. They collectively decide that the descriptions in the Pokedex are no longer accurate and need some extensive revisions. If you've ever read, literally like 50% of Pokemon Pokedex entries are absolutely ridiculous. They have really ridiculous scientific figures in them, like 10,000 degrees Celsius, or, they have like Pokemon who can destroy Indian elephants when Indian elephants don't exist in this world. It's ridiculous. So
the Pokemon as hot as the sun.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So the Pokedex needs revisions. It's full of old rumors, old wise tales, old exaggerations. So the professors ask you, literally the nearest photographer to them, to lead the charge into observing and producing accurate photographic evidence of actual Pokemon behavior in the wild. And you're going to be journeying through all 8 regions. I know this is a lot, but I think I've scaled this appropriately. So all 8 regions, you're going to be visiting 3 sort of key locations in each of those regions. Each level probably lasts less than 10 minutes. The same with the typical Pokemon Snap. So ultimately you spend about a half hour in each region. But I think what's key here is that the original Pokemon Snap created its own little environment. It was literally called Pokemon Island. It was a place where there weren't any humans, that sort of thing. But by this point, 8 generations into Pokemon, we have really vibrant, awesome regions out there that people want to continue to explore. Mm-hmm. So let's just revisit some of the coolest places and allow them to be examined from a first-person perspective. And not only that, in this proposal, I'm saying that we should also have a tour guide for each region. Mm. Somebody who accompanies you on your little Pokemon Snap excursions through each of these 3 levels from each of the 8 regions. So Professor Magnolia, naturally, volunteers Professor Sonia, along with her Yamper. and
Yes.
she is your guide to the Galar region. So let's unpack that a little bit. So you're going to be going through a little vehicle. It's going to be same sort of as the 0-1 from Pokemon Snap, able to trek across all sorts of different environments, that sort of thing. But this trainer and their sort of signature Pokemon are in the cabin with you.
Okay.
And so this provides not only an opportunity to take pictures of Pokemon outside and around you, you can also include your tour guide in the pictures. You can include their Pokemon in the pictures. They're going to help you sort of along the way, just sort of they'll comment on things around. Of course, I'd make this a toggleable feature just because I can imagine some people might not appreciate, having Sonia screaming in their ear every once in a while, but they can also help you sort of navigate the world, help you interact with the Pokemon in interesting ways. And then having a Pokemon with you the entire time, whatever their signature Pokemon is, also provides more opportunities for the wild Pokemon and a tame Pokemon, the Pokemon that we're familiar with, to interact and have some cool sort of things going on. So then Professor Oak volunteers Bill, the original PC guy.
Nice.
Along with his Eevee. And so this is also, I'm using Pokemon Snap as a way to introduce old characters that we loved at a time but have sort of gotten lost in the flurry of new characters that comes with each generation. Mm-hmm. Professor Elm volunteers Eusine, the guy from Pokemon Crystal who is searching after Suicune. Professor Birch volunteers Wally, your second rival in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald.
Oh, yeah.
Professor Rowan volunteers Cheryl, who is one of the specialized trainers that you encounter throughout Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. She specializes in HP-based Pokemon, so she has a Chansey. Professor Juniper volunteers Skyla, who is a pilot and a flying-type gym leader. So as you can imagine, from Unova, when you're flying around there, you're going to have a pilot with you. It'll be awesome. Professor Sigamore naturally volunteers Viola, who is a bug-type gym leader and a photographer. Perfect. And then Professor Kukui volunteers Hao, who is now, at this point in the Pokemon timeline, I speculate, very familiar with the entire Alola region because he wants to try all the Malasadas. So, and like I said, all of these trainers have a little companion Pokemon with them. Skyla's got a Ducklet. Viola's got her Vivillon, and Hao's got an Alolan Raichu. Again, I just love that idea of being maybe in a little bit of a group as you're going about this and not feeling so isolated and on rails as the original Pokemon Snap did. This provides a little bit more of moment-to-moment dynamicism, I think.
Yeah. Like, I was thinking, like, it would be a really great idea to have branching paths in the levels. Yeah. So, like, I'm imagining, like, do you think, like, these tour guides would be kind of like companions, like equipable companions? Like, you could swap them out? Okay. Yes. So then you could have, like you have, just throwing out there, like a factory level. You can send out Sonia's Yamper to power up a old rusty door and then open up that door and then you can go through there. Yeah. Or you could have Hao with a I forget what Pokemon he uses, like
yeah, usually he'll have like the opposite starter of what you pick, but I sort of considered his sort of analog or his sort of signature Pokemon to be like a Alolan Raichu, and maybe that's and maybe there's something that calls for a little bit of telekinesis, and Alolan Raichu being an electric psychic type might be able to help with that, or even something like there's I'm trying to think of more examples here. Oh, of course. So, I'm proposing that you've seen the guy who likes Suicune, who's searching after Suicune. I'm proposing that he has a Natu or a Xatu. He didn't have one in-game, but that I feel like Natu and Xatu are pretty iconic Generation 2 Pokemon. Yeah. And they have the ability to see the future. So, for them to sort of be like an alarm system, maybe, as you're going about throughout a level, like if a Xatu starts acting up, and Eusine could be like, oh, Zatu's feeling a little bit strange, there must be something ahead, and even maybe that just warns of a rare Pokemon ahead, maybe that warns of a certain obstacle that you'll need to navigate, a puzzle that you'll have to figure out. I think there's a lot of potential for those tour guides and their Pokemon being a sort of tool and like I said, just another way to interact with the environment around you. So yeah. So that's sort of like the core idea on how much I can sort of see gameplay changing. So at this point, they proposed this. They got all their volunteers. They got all their tour guides ready. You're about to journey through the 8 regions across all the Pokemon games. Professor Kukui and Professor Magnolia get to work on a Rotom camera. So this is a high-tech camera. It does exactly what a camera you would expect it to do, but it also measures temperature, detects supernatural forces, electrical wattage, that sort of thing. And this is how you are going to go about correcting and providing more accurate information about the Pokedex.
So not only taking photos, but like measuring Pokemon.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I never even thought of that.
It becomes a little bit more of strictly like wildlife photography, It becomes more about what are these creatures doing, what are their capabilities, that sort of thing. And, I think it's sort of been an odd blessing now that the Pokedex is so strange because it provides this opportunity to go in and really observe and learn about Pokemon in an accurate way.
Yeah, so. I think it'll also have a good opportunities for gameplay too. Like in the original Pokemon Snap, you were gauged on like the size of the Pokemon, the pose of the Pokemon, whether or not it was in the center of the frame, and then like different bonuses like, oh, this is Pikachu on a stump, or like, oh, there's multiple of the same Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then adding stuff like getting an accurate temperature and getting accurate readings. I think that to get more points, I think that's really interesting. It adds more depths on top of what was already there, and so you're not just taking pictures for like National Geographic. You're going out and you're figuring out how these Pokemon actually work in the real world.
Yeah,
and that really, I think that ties in really well. I think for this kind of franchise, you would want a little bit of mysticism, a little bit of fantastical elements.
Oh, for sure.
So we don't want to be like too scientific. Like we
right.
don't want to, like, oh, the Pikachu is really strong because it has a bunch of midi-chlorians,
Yeah, you don't want to over-explain. You don't want to pull a George Lucas for sure.
Yeah.
But and that's exactly why I think it's important that, the Rotom camera that I'm proposing could read things like the supernatural effects of like Ghastly and Haunter and that sort of thing. Like one of the Pokedex entries about Ghastly proposed that it's 95% gas and 5%, this is super morbid, the souls of the people that died from the gas. It's ridiculous. But just to maybe get in like a more accurate reading about like, oh, are those percentages right? Is it really human souls, or is it just some sort of other supernatural energy? Like, I think just to demystify the Pokedex a little bit would be good. I think there's a sweet spot where Pokemon are super interesting, and the Pokedex has sort of shot too far out. It's sort of gone beyond. It's like, oh, let's make Pokemon really ridiculous, to the point where it's just like, I don't understand how I could interact with this creature or how humans could survive around it.
Yeah.
I think we need to reel it in just a smidge so that Pokemon feel all the more endearing and welcoming and interesting.
Yeah, and I think having some of those exaggerations, I think they do add to the charm of these Pokemon, definitely, and adds to like especially like the really morbid like stuff about like the ghost Pokemon. But I think the world's ready, like especially with Pokemon Detective Pikachu and how realistically those Pokemon were depicted, while still being in line with the more fantastical elements. I think it's not beyond the realm of possibility to have it be just a little bit more realistic. Keep the fun of these powerful creatures, make them appear magical and powerful, but still being able to imagine them being like existing in this living room, you know, existing in this forest, existing in this city. I think that would accomplish our kind of mission, our strategic goal of making a better connection for the player with these Pokemon.
Exactly. I think I just want to get it to the point where, it's people always sort of think they're I shouldn't say people in general, but there's a certain a group of people online who always think it's like, oh, it's funny or edgy to mention that, like, if Pokemon were real, they would have killed everybody. And to a certain extent, some of the Pokedex entries support that, and I'm just trying to reel in on those. I'm just trying to show that, like, hey, the Pokemon world that they've created is awesome and lush and full of character, and it can exist, and it could be really exciting to have a little electrical mouse. I mean, we have electric eels, and like, so if people can believe electric eels exist, I just want to get them to the point where they could believe a Pikachu could exist. You know?
Yeah.
So there, like I said, there's a total sweet spot. I don't want to make ghost Pokemon not ghosts. I don't want to make psychic Pokemon not psychic. I don't want to make God Pokemon not deific in some way. You know, I still want them to retain that sense of scale because I think fantasy is important to this. I don't want it to become something that Pokemon isn't, but I think to really get into the nitty gritty would be a lot of fun. So, yeah. So that's again a lot of the core thing that's sort of happening. I also want this game to introduce a few new Pokemon.
Really?
Yes. So nothing in the press, nothing in the marketing about these new Pokemon. Imagine a new Pokemon, like literally our first image of a new Pokemon being somebody's in-game Pokemon Snap image. How cool would that be, right? I mean, just data miners, stay out of this. Don't mine those models out and post them on 4chan or wherever the heck. Just literally, like, let the first image of a new Pokemon be a Pokemon Snap player's image. How cool would that be? I think
that would be incredible.
So what I'm sort of proposing is that at least, so there's 8 different regions. Each region has one sort of new Pokemon. That's kind of tough to do because, you know, usually when we introduce new Pokemon, they're exclusive to this new area. So I'm thinking that these 8 different Pokemon are sort of these sprites or fairies that represent the regions themselves. They're sort of they like with Kanto, the original Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow games. A lot of those were focused on genetics and Mew and Mewtwo. So if we have like a creature that represents that interaction between humans and creatures and technology, that would be super cool.
Something more humanoid because that was kind of like the signifier of immense, like, above average power in the back then in the Pokemon world. Yeah,
if something was like more human-like, it had some sort of power that was instilled because of its relationship to humans. In Johto, you could have a Pokemon that represents the history and the traditions that exist there, that sort of thing. With now in the newest region, Galar, you could have a Pokemon that represents competition and being a fan and, you know, being excited about, you know, the sort of different cultural events around you. Like, I think if we can create 8 different Pokemon that sort of represent the core motifs of each region, that would be super cool, and that would just add a little bit of flavor to each of those regions. And once again, it would just be so cool to discover these Pokemon for the first time through the lens. So
yeah, and I think it would also be a really fun way to go about the concept of the signs from the original game, where you would have, like, you would take pictures of these, like, rock formations or like the shadows of that look like Pokemon, and then taking pictures of all those would unlock the final area of the game where you can take a photo of the final Pokemon.
Right.
And I think that would be a really fun way of incorporating that mechanic.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think my sort of final main column pillar of this proposal is that this game, this Pokemon Snap 2 World Tour, would also be Nintendo's first commercial foray into VR. I think there's not a better game existing out there that could demonstrate exactly what VR can offer to the Nintendo and any Nintendo franchise than Pokemon Snap.
Any VR game, really.
Right. It's just like, this is the opportunity. This is when Nintendo can jump on it. So not only is Pokemon Snap a great opportunity for Pokemon Snap fans, or Pokemon fans in general, it's an opportunity for Nintendo to create a substantial tech demo, if you know what I mean. Because at times, that's what Pokemon Snap feels like. It sometimes feels like a safari simulator. But Pokemon Snap with some of these newer elements and the introduction of VR could really feel like something substantial that tests the hardware in an organic way.
And it would give it would give us the twist on top of everything else that Masuda so really wants. Absolutely. And then before we get too far ahead, we need social media integration, like baked in, I think.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't play Pokemon Go. Does Pokemon Go have a lot of ways to interact with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram directly?
I think, if I remember correctly, you take a photo and I think it gets saved into a folder on your phone, and then you can share that on social media. Yeah. I think that's how it works. There might be some way to directly post it to Twitter or something, but I haven't personally encountered that.
Yeah, I haven't heard people talk about it either, but I agree, to have something that's intrinsically baked into the game makes a lot of sense. And I know
the Switch, you can take screenshots with the capture button, you can take videos with the capture button, and then you can then go in and into the album of your Switch, and then you can post it directly to Twitter.
Nice. And that, you just brought up something else too. I think I wouldn't want people to be able to go through these levels and record the entire level in game, but I think maybe having short video clips, not just being able to take photos, but short video clips would be really cool too. If people are just as big about making videos, making little Snapchats, making little Instagram stories, whatever, as they are about taking individual still photos. So for the Rotom camera to have the ability to take short videos too might be a compelling idea. Again, you'd have to limit it in some way where it couldn't be like, I'm just literally going to hit record and walk through the level, but to maybe have like short, maybe 5 seconds or less, or maybe even those different types of shots, like those short athletic burst shots where you take like a bunch of photos right in a row. That would be super cool. So
yeah, and I know the Switch, it has like you can take up to 30 seconds of video footage. And then in Super Smash Brothers, it's they remove the capture function like almost completely, and then they have like their own replay system where you can edit your videos and you can share your screenshot. You can share your screenshots within the in-game social media function as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we could either have that. It'd give Nintendo a reason to batter around their Nintendo Online app again.
Exactly. Yeah, to bring some sort of social aspect back to the Nintendo Online experience. So that's really the big the main skeleton of my proposal. I have some ideas for levels, the kinds of places that you'd visit in each of these regions, and the Pokemon that you would encounter. Really trying to make and pick Pokemon that are iconic to the story and the environments of those respective regions. But yeah, did you have anything else to add? Any other ideas?
Just a quick note. I think you said like, hey, random photographer over there, can you come help us? I think it would be more interesting to have like the player like take the agency to be like they overhear the conversation, and then they take the agency to be their photographer. That agency is really important to storytelling.
That would be super cool. Yeah, I dig that idea. Yeah, I was just I think that's a little bit more critical. Makes the player feel a little bit more involved and less sort of dragged along. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, and then I really like how you structured this, because like originally I just had like I was just thinking of like having more generic levels and then just putting in basically my favorite Pokemon in there. But structuring it the way you did with like, and then people can like, if they have a specific generation that they really love and really resonate with, then they can just play that level. They don't have to wade through like the entire game to just get to their favorite Pokemon.
Right. Ultimately, what I realized with Pokemon Sword and Shield, and you and I have talked about this off mic too, is that people are not just in love with Pokemon, they're in love with a lot of the trainers, they're in love with a lot of the world.
Absolutely.
Like, it's been awesome to see how crazy people have gone for example, Sword and Shield for Marnie. I think she has a really cool arc throughout the Pokemon game. I want to see more characters like that. I want to see more experiments with, like, you know, her entire, you know, it's her and her brother, and they run a gym, and literally their townspeople just get a little bit too riled up because they want the gym to do well, so then the town does well. Like, the fact that they thought about, like, oh, how would a Pokemon gym interact economically with a town? Like, give me more of that. And so what I wanted to do with Pokemon Snap was to provide an opportunity for people to fall in love with not just Pokemon out in the wild, but the trainers that they're traveling with, and with the environments that they're exploring, which exist in games that they already play and love, or maybe they haven't. Maybe Pokemon Snap is going to be somebody's way back into the Pokemon franchise.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's crazy. So
I can imagine this being people's, like, first, the first time they interact with, like, a lot of, like, Gen 2 Pokemon, Gen 1 Pokemon, right. Even. Like, if they skip down on Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I mean, they're going to eventually release a Let's Go Johto game.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
I mean, it hasn't been announced yet, but it seems pretty inevitable. But, like, and especially if we feature, like, a lot of the cut Pokemon from the Sword and Shield.
Right.
I think that would be really cool to kind of reinvigorate these Pokemon that weren't given the spotlight.
Exactly. So, yeah. If you have nothing else to add, I'm willing to talk about some of the level ideas that I have. Oh, yeah.
Let's press A to do it.
Press A to do it. All right. So, I don't have these in the regions necessarily in a specific order. The levels within them I do. But I think even to provide the player the agency to explore any of these regions sort of at their leisure might be kind of nice too, because maybe somebody starts out and they're like, oh, I want to go back to Kanto right away. I want to go back and I want to see those Gen 1 Pokemon right away. And to get them used to the game mechanics and engage with the game mechanics in the environment that they're most excited about might be good. Yeah. But willing to discuss that, of course.
I think it might be useful to have a more linear structure.
Sure.
That way we can introduce, like, upgrades in an organic way.
That's true.
So then people have the opportunity to go back to previous levels with, like, their Pokemon Flute or their Pester Ball. It would be good if, like, maybe we could start with, like, a selection of, like, 3 levels, and then
that's
have
a good
it kind of branch off that way.
Totally.
Like you could find, like, you could complete the level in the Galar region and find a, like, the Pokemon Flute, and then you can go back to the Kanto region one, and then there's a Snorlax there. Let's play our Pokemon Flute. Wake it up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So within each of these levels, I just sort of focused on... I have a bunch of ideas for what kind of Pokemon would exist there in these routes, in these areas, in these cities, in these dungeons, that sort of thing. But I think each one should sort of focus on having a sort of a secret encounter, one that you sort of have to work for, has a little bit more of the puzzle-oriented element to it, and another one focused on just, like, literally just completing the level from a narrative sense. You know, you want to have a nice clean end to the level. That's one thing I think Pokemon Snap struggled with sometimes, is that, like, for the cave level example, for an example, you sort of just wander out. It gets a little bit lighter. There's some Magnemites around. If you pull your camera up and you're not doing the right thing, they'll scream at you. And then the level just sort of peters off. It doesn't have, like, a clear-cut ending. So I think to have at least one big Pokemon at the end, you can call it a boss, I guess, but to have at least one big interaction that you'll always have at the end of the level, just to land that, I think would be good.
And they have that with, like, the legendary Pokemon you can find, like, at the end of the cave level. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, some levels just kind of end, but then they also have stuff like if you do something special with the Charmander, it becomes a Charmeleon, and then you can evolve it as a Charizard right before the level ends. I think there needs to be more of that.
Exactly. Yeah. That is the moment that I think of when I think about Pokemon Snap, is I think about being able to finally get a Charizard blowing fire right up in your face and snapping a really awesome picture of it. So to have more of those quote-unquote boss encounters, I think would be really good.
Yeah, they were... So fun fact, so one of the composers of the game, Ikuko Memori, she posted a horror-themed song for the game on her website, and it was for a lost level, and she also posted a boss theme for that level. So bosses were kind of like... They were entertaining the idea of, like, boss encounters.
Right, and I think they should really grab the horns on that and make this happen. So
that would be cool. At the same time, though, I don't know if we should, like, stop the... we have to avoid letting the game grind to a halt, like especially with like the fight with Mew, with just tossing the ball. That was just like, even as a kid, I was like, okay, this is painful.
Right, it's super cool because like the environment, like you're on a rainbow cloud and there's constellations up in the sky representing each of the different signs that you collected to access this area. That's super cool. The environment's amazing. Mechanics not so much there.
You're just throwing trash at this magical, mythical Pokemon.
You're in this like ethereal plane and you're just like, come here. I just want to get a good picture. You know, it's very silly when you step back. So yeah, I think you make a good point there in that you want these boss encounters not to necessarily be sticking points either. And there's anytime you introduce a big game mechanic like that, there's the opportunity for that. So, but I will give an example, sort of what I've been thinking here. So for the Galar region, I want the first sort of level to start out right in Winden City and Route 10. So Winden City is the final. Winden is the final city in the game, but it's got it captures a lot of what the Galar region's about.
London town.
Exactly. It has a giant Ferris wheel. It has a giant tower, Rose Tower. It has this huge stadium where the final Pokemon League battles take place. Like, that's all awesome. I want people to be excited about that right away. So you jump in and, you encounter the type of Pokemon that you might in a city. Lots of birds, so like Rookidee, Corvisquire, Corviknight. Maybe even some squirrels like Squovit and Greedent, that sort of thing. Maybe you have some Galarian Zigzagoons rooting through some trash. Perfect.
Yeah.
Love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking of a city level myself, and I did have Winden City through my mind as I was kind of thinking of this. I think it would be really cool to, like, experience, not only see Pokemon interact with each other, but see them interact with humans as well. Like, seeing them... thinking about them, like, not only in a natural environment, but in a more urban environment, seeing the kind of symbiotic relationship we as humans have developed with Pokemon. Yeah,
that's so critical to the Pokemon game. So I think, I appreciate what the original Pokemon Snap game did by providing an isolated sort of wild environment for these Pokemon. I get that and why they had to do it with where the Pokemon franchise was at. But I think now we're at a place where Pokemon's relationship to the human world is equally as important. So yeah, totally with you there. So as you go throughout this level, you're going through Winden City, and then you pop out in the nice little snowy area right outside Winden. And I really liked this area. It just really stuck with me, some of the Pokemon that you encounter there. So I wanted to make it part of the first level, and this is where those secret and boss encounters happen. So even though I don't know if it appears in this area specifically, I want the Pokemon Ice-Q to appear here as the secret encounter. So basically, you can take a photo of this Pokemon. It's a penguin with an ice cube on its head, and that's really all you need to know. And you can take a photo of Ice-Q with its ice cube head, or you can perform some sort of puzzle for it to break its head, and you get extra points for taking a picture of it without...
it's Ice-Q without its head.
Yes, exactly. And you'll get the extra points for that. So there's certain... Like, a lot of people gripe about the gimmick Pokemon and that sort of thing, but they provide an awesome opportunity to have puzzles and little challenges throughout a Pokemon Snap game. And then the final boss encounter I just made as a Galarian Darmanitan. Yeah. I think because it has form changes, again, sort of another thing that people have maybe not expressed such pleasure with throughout the Pokemon core games. I think form changes could maybe present some unique game mechanics as you interact with the Pokemon. So And Galarian Darmanitan's got a really unique sort of look to him. He looks like a snowman, and his alternate form looks even more like a snowman. So I think to have a really endearing Pokemon right off the bat would be super cool. And so all the levels are sort of structured in this way, where there's a secret encounter that you might not necessarily figure out with your first time through the level. There's a boss encounter that you'll sort of have to figure out in order to advance through the level, but that's how it goes, and it just encourages that replayability, I think. So
I actually had I kind of want to keep the city level and the Arctic level kind of separate,
sure,
so just to kind of keep the focus consistent.
For sure.
And then I just want to add some of my own ideas for like I know in Winden there's like that city garden that was there, and then we could have some like Butterfree and Combees in there, some Flabébés in there. That would be fun. We could do that thing where there's like a Pokemon rustling in the leaves, and then it would shoot out, and it's a Scyther.
Yep.
And then I think it would be fun to have some of the Pokemon that were clearly inspired by animals that live in urban environments, like stuff like P-Dove. I mean, we gotta have that.
Yeah, gotta have a pigeon.
Snubbull and Furfrou, the kind of dog Pokemon. Yep. It'd be interesting to see some like Machamp and some Conkeldurr working on like a construction site.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think there's a really good sweet spot in between our sort of two ideas. Like as I went about this, I held very closely to the Pokemon games, like the environments and the Pokemon that appear there. I think we can be a little bit more flexible about it, like how you're suggesting, and find a nice little medium, because literally I was looking through, I was like, Winden City, what Pokemon are appearing like in the streets? Are there any NPCs who have Pokemon about there? Maybe we can include them. And then in the route outside it, what Pokemon spawn there? I was literally going on Cerebi and seeing like what Pokemon spawn there. I think that might not be the best way to go about it. I think there's something to saying Winden is the city level, period, and we can put all of those really urban-oriented Pokemon there. I think there's something there. So, yeah. Great idea. Yeah, and so maybe I'll just grab a few other suggestions that I have for some levels. So, while we're still in Galar, I'll still talk about Galar. So the final level I'm thinking for Galar is the Slumbering Weald, which is actually one of the first areas that you encounter in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I think it would be great to have Zacian and Zamazenta here as the big final bosses. You got to have those legendaries there to really create those compelling interactions and have those some of those great photos. And then here I was so proud of myself. I thought about Galarian Stunfisk as the secret encounter, because when you're taking photos you don't think to look down to the ground.
Yeah.
But it would be so great if you accidentally like knock the control stick and you're like, wait, there's a Pokemon down there. And
then you just see like a Pokeball, and then you throw some Pokemon food at it, and then it snaps up, and then it reveals itself.
Exactly. So again, just looking at these Pokemon that might have an interesting game mechanic to them, or might have a really bizarre design to them, and saying, how could you interact with them in the wild and get some of these really great moments that Pokemon Snap provides.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, I want to talk about my idea for a haunted house level.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so now this is an on-rails game. You're in a cart going down. Let's go full-on Disney's haunted house here.
Yes.
So, and as I said before, they were considering the idea of a horror-themed level, but then this was back in the day when there were only 3 ghost-type Pokemon, and the dark-type Pokemon weren't even a thing.
Right. So
they couldn't really do much with that idea, but now there's like a ton of dark-type Pokemon and ghost-type Pokemon, especially since with climate change, they're all dying and becoming ghosts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you go in, and the first thing you see is the big, huge, ornate mansion, and you go through the gates, creak open, and then you can look over before you go through the front door. You can look to the side. Oh, there's a Trevenant.
Okay.
Right
outside in the garden. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
You're going down the main foyer. It's a big, long, high hallway, and then you see like I really want to take advantage of the fact that a lot of these like ghost type Pokemon are kind of like tricksters and kind of they like pulling pranks on people. Excuse me, and so you could have like you could see like there up on the ceiling there's like a line of chandeliers. Yeah. But then you see one of them is kind of a little off color, so you throw your Pester Ball in it, and then you see a Chandelure.
Yes, I love Chandelure.
I love Chandelure.
That's my fiance's favorite Pokemon, so I have to mention it.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. I think, especially since there's so many Pokemon based on objects now, there's such a great opportunity to incorporate them in a space like that. Mm-hmm. I've had a couple sort of ghost themed or like more spooky oriented levels throughout my sort of level spec, and I think that's because a lot of really iconic areas in Pokemon games are, the big mountains with all the spooky ghost Pokemon, or the towers with all the ghost Pokemon.
The abandoned supermarket with the ghost Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of those areas are super memorable. So I'll talk about maybe an idea or two I had from those more spooky oriented levels. So for Kanto, I was thinking we could definitely return to Pokemon Tower, and one for the secret encounter there, I thought would be Cubone and Marowak. Like, imagine going through there and Bill, who's your companion in Kanto, says, "Oh, do you hear something crying?" And, that could very easily be a one-off line just to sort of get you immersed in the level. You're like, "Oh, yeah, that's right, it's spooky." To hear, like, a child or a creature crying is, like, supposed to, like, creep me out a little bit. Mm-hmm. But then you slowly find out that, like, no, that's actually coming from somewhere. It's a Cubone. And then you sort of let it out. There's a Marowak nearby that notices that, oh, it's out, and then that's your secret encounter. You take a picture of them, get extra points, that sort of thing. So
that'd be cool. You know what would be a really cool idea? If you could, like, somewhere in the game, you get, like, an upgrade that gives you the Sliff Scope. Oh, and then so you can figure out, like, okay, you can find all the hidden ghost-type Pokemon. You could put, like, a filter on your camera that kind of like reduces your line of sight, that reduces your vision a little bit, but it'll allow you to find those Pokemon like you could find the Chandelier that's a little bit off. Yeah. Then you can go out of the camera, throw your Pester Ball, and then you'll find your Chandelure.
Right. Yeah, that's totally awesome. Mm-hmm. I love that kind of stuff.
I think we'll also need a moment where like you'd have like a hall with like suits of armor, one of the pieces of the armor like tries to chop you with a halberd, like, or like it just like they swing it and it ends up like right in front of you, just like a little like like a Pokemon game doesn't need to be scary, but like those little moments, I think that would be fun.
I think the original Pokemon Snap definitely did benefit from being a bit theme park ridey, and I think to lean into that in levels, especially like a haunted house level, would be great. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It doesn't need to be. They don't need to be jump scares. They don't need to be this or that. But just to sort of harken back to that sense of riding on those rides as a kid, or even playing Pokemon Snap as you did, that would be good. I think that's not something that they need to shy away from necessarily. But yeah, that's great.
And we'll need Ghastly in there. Maybe one of the paintings in there has like the iconic like triangle eyes. Yeah. And you can take a picture. You can throw your some Pokemon food out and draw out the Ghastly. Then I was thinking like you could go there. There might be like a dungeon area too, and then you can find some like subterranean Pokemon. Like you could find like Zubat.
Oh, for sure.
And then it would be cool if like if you could like use like if there was like lit wicks around, you could like find some way to light those, and then you could find like a secret passage or something.
That would be cool. I dig that. Yeah. Yeah, the boss encounter I was sort of thinking for the Pokemon Tower. Again, you got to sort of mishmash some things because some of the Pokemon areas are very limited. But I was thinking that you would encounter a Hypno that's actively trying to hypnotize you while you're trying to take a photo of it. So there's something that's making it difficult, like to quite aim perfectly and get that correct shot. And that's sort of what the boss counter is about, is just sort of working around the hypnosis, something like that. I think for the Pokemon to have a more direct impact on how you can take photos is a big key to making this Pokemon Snap all the more interesting. So yeah. Just to keep it the spooky theme, I wanted to mention that for sure.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
So we got our city level, we got our haunted house level, or haunted area.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I think this 4th generation had a haunted house, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was the chateau.
Yes, that's where you found Rotom. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think maybe even
I didn't even think about Rotom.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you could have like a TV, and it pops up randomly, and then you could have like. You could throw a Pokeball at that, and if you throw a Pester Ball at like the TV when it goes on, and then the refrigerator when it acts up, and then a fan and a lawnmower, then you'll finally encounter Rotom.
Yeah,
and that could be like our secret encounter. That's
perfect.
Also, I think it would be really awesome if we could incorporate like the players, if the player could use their knowledge of Pokemon to figure out some of these puzzles. I think that would make the player really feel invested in this world.
Oh, for sure. Like, for example, one of the Hoenn levels I had was based around Sutopolis City and the Cave of Origin, and I had the secret encounter there being a Feebas and Melodic, which are two notoriously difficult to find Pokemon in the games. And if we could establish some sort of rule that helps them like think, oh, how did I find Feebas back in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire? If we can allow them to use that existing knowledge to help them prompt this encounter, that would be super cool. So I didn't have anything specific for a Feebas and Melodic for this level, other than they would be the secret ones. But I think you hit the nail on the head with have people who this is what takes Pokemon Snap from a purely casual game to a sort of a Pokemon fan moment. Is having that piece of knowledge, that certain technique that you were using, having that continue to apply. So yeah, totally. Let me see if there's any others that really sort of illustrate what I'm talking about. Oh, so in Sinnoh, there's the Great Marsh, which is unfortunately kind of a forgettable area in the game, but to sort of bring it to life with Pokemon Snap 2, I think would be a great thing. Like, for example,
they didn't really have a marsh level back in the original games. They had like the river level, but that was pretty much it.
Right, yeah. And they had the river sort of jungle area, like that was about it. But to have something that's really mucky and there's vines and there's bubbling things, things like this is the best swamp level in all of video games is Bubble Gloop Swamp from the original Banjo-Kazooie. Evoke that. Yeah. So one idea that I had for here was Stunky and Skuntank, the two skunk Pokemon, are pretty emblematic of that generation. They're used by some of the villains, and they appear in Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think, again, for your companion, which in this case is Cheryl, to be like, oh man, something smells bad, and you could be like, oh well, it's a swamp, it could smell bad, but it's like, no, something smells really bad, and this is how you secretly find out, there's a Stunky or a Skuntank nearby. So, again,
hiding somewhere. Yeah,
exactly. I think just to again, it's all about how those Pokemon interact with humans, and that's really what this Pokemon Snap needs to lean into. So yeah. Were there any other sort of main environments that you were very excited about, had some compelling ideas about?
I had an idea, and it might be a little ambitious, but I think it works really well with your idea of like representing different regions. I was thinking of like having a level set in the wild area, and this time you're not on the track. You get to explore the whole wild area and try to find different encounters within a time limit.
That's cool. That's almost like a different mode. It's cool.
Yeah.
I really dig that. Yeah, I love the wild area. It's exactly what a lot of people want Pokemon to be, and you see sort of the limitations of it, because there can be other trainers that appear there. The graphics are a little bit more limited because, you can encounter Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon there. You have to have these special sort of little portals called dens to get places. But to celebrate the wild area in a different way with the different game mechanics might just get people more engrossed in that idea.
Yeah, like thinking about you probably know about this. In Kingdom Hearts 3, they had that one mission with the Flan creatures in the Tangled world.
Yes.
Where you can have Sora go around and take photos of the Flan creatures, and they would act. You would have pretty much only one chance to capture this moment that happens, in the game, and then we could have a variation of that. You can almost think of this as a kind of a Groundhog Day thing where certain things only happen at certain times within the 5-minute time limit, and so you have to be at a specific spot or trigger different things in a different way to make those things happen. You could have a Magikarp. You could it might appear in this one spot, and you can hit it with a Pester Ball and push it into a new river, and then you can keep pushing it along the river until it gets to the Lake of Outrage, or I don't think there's a waterfall in that area, but if you can push it into the waterfall, now you have your Gyarados.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. I love the idea of having an area where you could have some free roaming options, and again, you have to perform certain things, do certain things within a time limit. That's great.
And it'll also give you an excuse to use all your upgrades, just like the wild area in Pokemon Sword and Shield. The whole thing opens up once you get all the gym badges, and especially once you get the upgrade for your Rotom bike that lets you travel on water. That a whole swath of area, you can go to the Lake of Outrage, which has some of the best Pokemon in the game.
Yeah.
And catch all those Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then so this, I'm thinking that the water. I know in the original game, with the vehicle, those kind of functions were kind of being able to float on water, being able to hover in the air. They were kind of pre-baked into the thing, but if we treat them as upgrades, especially with the idea of having levels with branching paths, okay, now you have the water thing, now you can travel here. I think that would be also a great opportunity for the wild area.
Yeah, most certainly. Yeah, and I think too, having the connections back to the trainers and the Pokemon characters, the people themselves too, presents opportunities for upgrades and more interactions with, how you might be able to get farther on a level. Bill might be able to, update your Rotom camera to capture a certain type of data, or Skyla might be the one who gives your 0, 1, or whatever you want to end up calling a vehicle at the end of the day. Maybe she's the one who gives it the flying capabilities. And I don't know, maybe Hao gives it a little beverage dispenser or something because he's the food guy. But you get what I'm saying. There's so many ways that Pokemon and people and the environments interact that this Pokemon Snap could be an entire celebration of it. So
absolutely,
yeah. And the wild area, as you mentioned, is our first sort of foray into that. So to use that as a core level too, I think is an awesome idea. So yeah,
I think it'll also really. I don't know if we're really ready to talk about our end game yet. Do you have any more ideas about level ideas?
So I like I said, a lot of these were based on existing levels or areas, dungeons in the Pokemon games. I think it's just key with this sort of approach that some of these levels can really be fleshed out by Pokemon Snap. For example, one level I had for the Johto region was the Elix Forest, which is it looks like any other forest, basically, in the Pokemon games, but in some of the anime and some of the other supplementary games, they really flesh it out to be more than that. It's like a shrine. It's the area where Celebi is, and I think those sorts of levels too, to maybe color in some of those areas from the games that were supposed to be compelling, but because of the limitations of the hardware or because they were from an older version or something, they weren't exactly everything that they were intended to be. I think Pokemon Snap has an opportunity for that too. So yeah, the Elex Forest was one idea I had, and Celebi being the secret encounter, and Heracross, a Pokemon that you notoriously get from headbutting trees, that being the boss encounter there, sort of. So yeah, and again, you're using the knowledge from the Pokemon games to encounter these Pokemon. So, for example, you're going through this with Eusine. Maybe you ask him to send his Natu or Xatu over to go disturb that tree and see if something falls out. And that's how you encounter Heracross, or how you encounter a Pineco or something. So yeah, I think that's really the only other general idea I had about levels. None of them are really so thematically strong as the fire level or the water level, that sort of thing. A lot of them are just colored by the regions that they're a part of. Again, I think this is a great opportunity to just make the Pokemon world that much more lush and awesome. So yeah, any more level ideas from you?
I had an idea for a desert level.
Okay.
I was looking through some early beta footage of the game, and they had an idea. They had part of that early level appeared to look like a desert. So I know the valley area kind of fills in that role, but that was kind of more of a mountainous area.
Exactly.
And it wasn't really a desert.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be, especially since we have so many rock type, ground type, steel type Pokemon.
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. You can have a hippopotamus, you can have whirlpools of quicksand.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be funny to knock a Pokemon in there, and then it emerges the Pokemon and a hippopotamus.
Yeah.
Hippopotamus.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we could also have that level transition into an ancient ruins area.
Oh, for sure.
That would be really cool. Have stuff like Clay Doll and Cofagrigus,
yes.
Cofagrigus. That would be super cool. And then we have Lucario because, the Anubis and all that.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I always forget Lucario's with the connection back to Anubis and Egyptian boxers and stuff. Super fascinating.
Everybody always assumes it's the furry bait Pokemon.
It's no, it's an Anubis. But I did have a desert resort, the desert resort from the Unova region.
Yeah, I was I had that in my mind as I was envisioning that level.
Yeah, exactly, because it's more than just a desert, because there is a desert in Ruby and Sapphire, but it's just kind of there's sand here, and there's a sandstorm going throughout the battle, so you have to
it wouldn't even there's you need goggles to go through there, so
right. And so the Unova region's desert resort area was a much more fleshed out idea of what a desert level could be, and you catch Yamask, the sort of Egyptian mask Pokemon, and then Cofagrigus, the Egyptian sarcophagus Pokemon there, and I think they would make for just awesome encounters. I think Cofagrigus is one of the boldest, creepiest designs for Pokemon that they've had in a really long time. I mean, they didn't shy away from the real world Egyptian influences and just made it a really eerie, disturbing Pokemon. So
that's still cute too.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes it more creepy.
Yeah, it's just they got this beautiful balance of the endearing and the little bit of evil too. So yeah. I think definitely for a desert level to have some of the ruins aspect to them would be wonderful. Another Pokemon that I thought would be a compelling encounter would be a Sigilyph. Again, another Pokemon from the desert resort in the Unova region. But I remember encountering that Pokemon for the first time and being really surprised, wow, this is a really wild looking creature. And I used it in my first playthrough of Pokemon White. It would have been White I played. So again, I like to think that a lot of Pokemon players had those similar experiences, and for them to encounter those kind of Pokemon that surprised them in the main games, to surprise them again in Pokemon Snap 2 would be perfect. So, yeah, a desert level would be great. I think there's something to be said about... So a lot of the recent Pokemon regions have been based on European areas. We had Kalos, which was based on France, and then we now just recently had Galar, which is based on the UK. And so I think to have maybe a castle level or some sort of like really grand estate level would be great. The ones that I sort of thought of from the game itself were like En's Castle in the Unova region.
Oh, yeah.
Just to have a castle level in that kind of eerie, abandoned place with like a rich history to it, with that sort of like sense of epicness. I think there needs to be a level like
and
that.
And we can also like combine that with the haunted house idea as well.
Right. Yeah, if you didn't want the haunted house level to necessarily be too Disney's Haunted Mansion type, you could definitely take it that direction.
Do a Castlevania kind of thing.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be great. And I think that would be a great opportunity for Pokemon like Honedge and Doublade and Aegislash, these haunted sword Pokemon, which are super fascinating and have a lot of interesting Pokedex lore on about them that you would love to learn more about or debunk, whatever. I think to have those Pokemon in this game somehow would be great.
Yeah, and it could work like Megamite, where you can like knock them into the other Pokemon and then you can evolve them into the Doublade.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I
don't know if that's how that Pokemon works, but
yeah,
it's an idea.
Within the game, within the core games, I think it just evolves by leveling up, but just to, again, provide some of those organic moments would be really, really cool. So, to keep with the sort of desert and sort of ruins and that sort of thing, the ruins of Elf from the Johto region was another thing that I had in mind, just because I want the unknown to be fleshed out in Pokemon games, because they're weird, cryptic, useless Pokemon, and that makes them all the more creepy. It's just like, why are they here? Like, you can't use them competitively or anything. You can't even really use them through your playthroughs. They're just one for every letter of the alphabet, and some for some special characters. And maybe Pokemon Snap is a good opportunity to explore the lore a little bit. So,
just going back to the idea of like Pokemon Snap being like an extension of the universe, like the anime was.
Right.
I think most of that lore of those Pokemon came from like the third movie.
Yeah, exactly, and it's never been lived up to in a game, really. So I think to have them in Pokemon Snap would be an opportunity for them to do that. So, yeah, those are a lot of the level ideas that I have. I think to encounter a lot of the legendaries would be good as well. So yeah.
And then we'll also have the brand new Pokemon that could serve as the signs.
Yeah.
And then so for the end game, I was thinking it could be at the wild area.
Yeah.
And then so like there'd be like this door that I know there isn't one in the game itself, but maybe they like uncover it like they did with when Kuparaja Kuparaja knocked down that
mural that the
mural
made.
in Stone Side, and uncovered this like statue. Maybe there could be something like they've uncovered this door and they don't know how to open it, and that could be like a mystery that compels the player throughout the entire game. And then you do your upgrade, you find your upgrades, you explore these levels, and you finally find those Pokemon, and you finally figure out that, okay, these secret Pokemon are the key to opening this door.
Yeah.
So then you finally get them all, and then you open it up, and it's the sleeping place of Mewtwo.
Yeah.
I think so the final boss in Pokemon Snap was Mew.
Right.
I think it only makes sense to have the final boss of this game be Mewtwo.
Okay. Yeah. I'm totally behind that. I think there's so much great lore surrounding Mewtwo, and he continues to be super intimidating in everything that he's in. Like, I was a bit skeptical when I found out that, as I was watching, spoilers for Pokemon Detective Pikachu, as I found out that he was sort of a part of the big villains plan, I was like, okay, Mewtwo, I've sort of seen him before, but the way he sort of interacted with that movie and that story and those characters was still really cool and a lot of fun. So I don't see why it would be any different in Pokemon Snap 2. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and maybe even there's, to tie all the lore together, maybe the reason that the 8 professors have met at the beginning of the game is because Mewtwo's gone missing. And there's some other force trying to, like, lock it away, trying to observe it. It might be these new 8 Pokemon from each of the regions just sort of being like, you made this genetic abomination and it's done really nothing but bad. So, hey, maybe we're going to try to lock it away. But, and by then, of course, your motivation could be that there's more to learn about Mewtwo. So, yeah, that's it. It could be a very, very subtle commentary on, like, don't burn books, just, don't don't read the books or don't necessarily follow everything they say. So
yeah, I mean, and I think it would be really cool to have that kind of not only depth in the gameplay but depth in the kind of story and world,
for sure,
and to have that kind of through line to kind of compel the adventure. I think that would be really great.
Yeah, if you just drop those little nuggets of knowledge, making the player know that, like, hey, Mewtwo is missing. That's why these professors are together. This sort of, like, secondary thing about the Pokedex and that you're on. That's important, but don't forget this is still going on. Just to have that undercurrent throughout the entire game would be really, really cool. Another sort of thing that I considered for a strong end game was the Ultra Space. They call it in Generation 7, that would have been Pokemon Sun and Moon. There's an alternate dimension with Pokemon that are very, very unique looking, and I loved what they did here. They really gave themselves sort of license to make some weird abstract Pokemon, and there's nothing really quite like this in the original Pokemon Snap to visit some really extra dimensional place. So that was another idea I had for an end game, to go and, because Ultra Beasts, this particular sort of brand of Pokemon, they remain quite mysterious even after their storyline is wrapped up in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So I think for Pokemon Snap to take an opportunity to explore them further might be pretty compelling.
The Ultra Space would be a really fascinating level.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine, like, we only got really like a taste of it in, like, I don't know about Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon because I didn't check out those games, but, like, at least in Sun and Moon you just kind of go into, like, this kind of, like, rocky cave area with like these weird gems, and I think there's so much more you could do with, like, an alternate dimension where everything's just a little bit different, just a bit more weird. Would be really cool. And it'll also give us, like, we could do something in the distortion world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something like that where you could have the player, I don't know if this might be too disorienting, but, like, having the player, like, turn slowly onto walls,
right?
Or, like, even go upside. Well, maybe going upside down would be too much, but, like, go up waterfalls. Yeah, that would be sweet. And then they would see, like, Pokemon just, like, flying around the world.
Yep, and you hear, like, rushes of, like, something bigger out there, and that's eventually Giratina, something like that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool areas in the last moments of Pokemon games. And to take advantage of those fully in a Pokemon Snap game would be super fun, because you get to experience it from a first-person perspective, which is not really feasible in the Pokemon games as they are. So to give them a taste of a really disorienting extra-dimensional area would be a lot of fun. So yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options for how you could wrap up this game, but there's some pretty solid options right there. So yeah,
awesome. Well, do you have any closing thoughts?
I just really want this game to happen. The more and more I thought I put into it, the more and more I fell in love with it. Just to make a Pokemon game, Pokemon Snap game that celebrates not only the creatures as the first Pokemon Snap game did, but to celebrate the great trainer characters and the great professor characters and other sort of areas that they've really established throughout the Pokemon games. I think that would be just great.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I've realized playing Pokemon Sword and Shield is that the Pokemon world has so much potential to it. And even after, 20, 22, however many years Pokemon has been around, we've really only scratched the surface of the potential that this kind of world provides. So I think Pokemon Snap should dive right in.
Yeah, and I really like this idea of like the tour guides, because like I feel like now it all kind of depends on the character, of course, but I think a lot of the trainers that we fall in love with, they fall in love more with the idea of the trainer rather than the trainer themselves. I mean, you've talked a lot about like Marnie in Sword and Shield, and those are really standout examples, but there isn't quite enough. And I think being able to actually go on a journey with these characters would be really cool. That's actually something I've thought about for the main series of games, being able to hang out with these trainers, like go adventuring together, even like as party members. That would be super cool.
Yeah, it's like and they're always so close to capturing some of these ideas. Like in Pokemon X and Y, you have like a group of trainers that you start out with, but they're all super lame.
They're bad.
Oh my gosh! Like one of your friends, his name is Tierno, and he just wants to dance with his Pokemon, which is literally, why would you think about that? Why is that? Why is that a character trait? That's like for like another episode.
I mean, who doesn't want to dance with Pokemon? But at the same time, that's pretty much it.
That's his character.
It's just a big guy who likes to dance. There's nothing really compelling about him. Maybe they expand upon him in the anime, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't know either. But for them to really engage with this idea of you having people that you travel with directly instead of just having every Pokemon game be a solo mission, I think is a strong idea. Again, they sort of tap into it with Pokemon Sword and Shield, with you sort of competing against other challengers in the gym challenge. Marnie's going through a lot of the same challenges you are. Bede is going through a lot of the same challenges you are, and then of course Hop is right there with you, feeling a lot of the same pressures that you do, being from like a small town and being so closely connected to Leon the champion. I think that for me is probably about as close as they've gotten to this idea of really traveling with somebody. And if Pokemon Snap can tap into that and really succeed at it, maybe we'll see it in the main series games too. So, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, dude, this has been fun. I love speculating and creating things. I mean, you and I are both writers by trade, so this is our jam. But I'm sure you and I have found a favorite game series or movie or something that we've created a little bit of fan fiction or something around, and this is a great way to legitimize it. I love it. So
get a great way to get that good old content out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I thinking about this, I just want to play this game more and more. I want it to exist, and I hope Mr. Masuda is listening to this, so he can finally go ahead and greenlit the project.
Yep.
Or whoever handles these things. If you're listening, make sure you at least put us in the special things. I think that's the least you can do.
I'll take it.
If you can have us on board as creative consultants, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for joining me, Dayton. It's always a good time talking games with you.
Absolutely. I look forward to the rest that this podcast has to offer. I think there's going to be a lot of exciting talk here.
Yeah.
Tune in, folks. This is going to be a good time.
Yep. Okay. So before we go, Dayton. So I'm sure a lot of people are listening to this and being like, "Wow, that guy has a great voice." I wish he could talk about this more, but also talk about tournament brackets that don't usually have for things that usually don't have tournament brackets. That's a really specific request, but
well, thank you. I can fulfill it. Yes. So my show on Zima Podcasting Network is called Who You Got. It's a debate show that puts anything from pop culture to history to science and culinary, whatever. It takes any 8 topics or 4 topics, if I'm doing a solo episode, puts it into a bracket and decides the best of that set of things. It's a lot of fun. It's very silly, very lighthearted. We've had an episode on Pokemon before, and we've referenced to Pokemon characters like Team Rocket and some other episodes. It was our Cartoon Villains episode where we talked about them. It's a lot of fun. Really hope that you come on and join and enjoy the sultry tones of my voice talking about Pokemon. So, and then also, it's the holiday season at this time of recording. If you guys are interested in hearing a little bit more dynamic take on what I have to offer, I voice the character Bernard in A Journey Through the North Pole, Zima Podcasting Network's first 3D audio drama. It's a lot of fun. Listen to it with headphones and you'll feel like you're right there on a train car traveling through Winter Wonderland. It's a great time, so hopefully you'll check that out as well.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to promote?
Just watch all the shows on Zima Podcasting Network. This is the place to be.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you very much. And I also would like to add that if you enjoy my voice, you can listen to episode 5 of Who You Got, where me and Dayton are talking about the best arcade games. And if you would like to have more of my stuff, you can follow me on Twitter at PSYJACKED, Sidejacked. You can also just search Jack Fennimore on Google. And if you want to support me directly, you can look at my articles on heavy.com. I am a contributor for the gaming section on there, and I work the Pokemon Go vertical. And so to look at all my stuff, you can go on heavy.com/games, and you'll probably find it up there. And then I also like to post my articles on my Twitter account, so you can find those there as well. And then I also, as I mentioned before, I also do freelance for the Urban Milwaukee, so you might see some of my photo galleries up there floating around, maybe like the arts and entertainment section. So please check those out if you're so inclined. All right. Well, thank you again very much for listening. Tune in next month, hopefully. We have tons more media to dream up for you guys. And let us know in the comments or social media or whatever you want. Let us know your thoughts on how a Pokemon Snap game would work, a new entry in the series, and also let us know what pieces of dream media you would like us to bring into reality a little bit. All right. Thank you guys very much for listening. And dream on. Thank you.